Creativity and creative thinking are tremendous, but we've all experienced times when we have needed to wrestle through some or all of the process. With that in mind, we've designed the Creative Wrestle to be a space to learn, reflect, and steal from a broad range of like-hearted creatives. We speak with artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, production directors, strategists, storytellers, and many more on their inspirational and unique approaches to the creative process. This is the Creative Wrestle with Lauren and Renée.
This episode is brought to you by Brown Fox Creative House. Brown Fox Creative House helps founders and brands turn big ideas into unforgettable impact. They take a holistic approach, blending strategy, storytelling, and data-driven creativity to launch brands, lead culture, and inspire action. With people and emotion at the centre, Brown Fox Creative House creates work that moves audiences to action. Go say hi on socials at Brown Fox Creative House or visit brownfox.com.au. And today we're joined by Annie Phillips. Annie founded LUMN with a simple conviction. The world doesn't just need more ideas. It needs those ideas to be built into reality without losing their beauty or intent along the way. Before founding LUMN, Annie served as Executive Director of Renaissance in London, leading its expansion to New York, Latin America, and Australia. She has worked across politics, research, and the nonprofit sector, including as team leader of research at McCrindle. Annie holds a Master of Philosophy in Public Policy from the University of Cambridge and a Bachelor of Commerce from Macquarie University. Welcome, Annie.
Well, let's set the scene. Thank you, Annie, so much for joining us today. I want to start with our connection, if I may, and I'd love to brag about you in front of you for a minute. So just sit back, relax, have a cup of tea.
Awkward.
Annie and I, we met in Brisbane at the fabulous Newstead Nodo, to be precise. So imagine round table, flat whites, and the odd donut. And we were introduced by a mutual friend, the lovely Emily. And you've very quickly become someone I consider to be a safe, collaborative space, as well as being such a fantastic, sharp thinker and an all-round impressive human. You're the type of person who is like an iron sharpen iron type of friend. And what I love is that you don't just think in terms of singular projects and ticking boxes, but you press into how to shift the dial on an entire ecosystem, which is an incredibly refreshing take. I love the creative thinking you bring to each of our conversations, from discussing our shared time in London to how to change the social fabric of a community. You have an authentic way of challenging mindsets, offering alternative ways to view problems, always approaching life through a thoughtful lens. You're someone I admire, and I'm thrilled that our paths have crossed. And we are so, so grateful that you've made time to chat with us today so that we can learn from you. So thank you, Annie. Welcome again. Let's start with a bit of geography. We've both crisscrossed the globe at similar times. Can you tell us about your travels, and particularly what was the catalyst from moving from Sydney to London?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I've equally enjoyed our conversations, and it's just exciting to be able to join you. And I think this is just like one of the examples of the many ways that we kind of can outwork our creativity and help like the next generation coming through. And I'm excited about our conversation. So, context.
Good.
I love when you have friends who have like experienced different contexts, particularly international contexts with you. So Sydney,
yes.
That move, I was working in politics at the time. I was kind of finishing up thinking about what was next and loved the policy side of what I was doing. And so I ended up applying to do my master's in public policy over at Cambridge and got in. And that was actually during COVID. So headed over in the end of 2021 when there was like full lockdown in Sydney. Ended up being on a very empty plane, but landed in the UK and had a great time. Spent about a year there and then moved down to London after that.
Amazing. I have done a couple of trips to Cambridge and you just feel like you're in another world. I just love how pristine it still feels. It feels like you suddenly need to look like Jane Austen and don a fabulous full-skirted outfit and, slow everything down and walk with a book. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah. And the robes as well. Everyone's walking around in robes for the formal dinners, and it is like its own kind
Oh
of
my
world, and it
goodness.
feels like it was quite a while ago now, but yeah, it just feels like you're in a different town, different life during that. Yeah, it's a bit of a bubble, but it's an amazing opportunity. And yeah, I just feel really privileged to have done it and met so many like lifelong
Yeah.
friends through the process. So yeah.
Amazing. And we know a lot of the same people, actually, which is really, really fun. I want to focus in on the Saint Church crew, if I may, from London. And they are an outstanding picture of vibrant, purposefully active, innovative community. It's just an amazing reality that's happening over there in Hackney. I'd love to hear about your connection with Saint, and also if you can talk to us a bit about the Renaissance movement.
Yeah. So after I finished studying my master's, I really felt like there were some doors opening in London, and I had a job lined up actually. And it was funny, I had this like kind of tension that I felt around it for a few weeks. And when I was supposed to start, I felt like God was saying like it wasn't the right path to take, and so I ended up turning it down.
Wow.
And I remember sitting in Green Park, you'll know the area, Renee, and just like
Yes.
just after that, and just being like, oh, I just like turned down a job, and I don't really have a place to live at the moment in London. And it was just kind of, and I'm on the other side of the world.
Wow.
What did I do? I've taken this risk. And I remember calling my brother, and it was just like early enough that it was before kind of he went to bed in Australia. And I basically said, look, I'm in London. I've turned down the job. What do I do? And he was like, oh, congratulations. You've taken a risk for once in your life. And it just felt like one of those moments of being like, okay.
Sounds like an older brother.
Yeah. But it gave me the courage. Like when it wasn't like what have you done? Why have you
Yes.
you need the job so that you can pay for the rent and like get a place to live. And I was met with that like such an unexpected response. It gave me the courage to kind of keep going and take the risk and go, you know what, I just need to do the next best thing. And so actually it was one of the most beautiful seasons, just being able to kind of spend a bit more time in prayer and discernment and having coffees with people. And London's one of those really vibrant places where, when you say, hey, like, I've done these things, I'm thinking about next steps. Most people you meet will be like, like I have 3 people who have come to mind who I should introduce you to. And then you'll reach out to those 3 people, and
yes,
you'll have had coffees with them all within a week. And so it's just this beautiful environment in which things just happen, and you have so many exciting conversations that those in between times are never wasted. And Saint, I actually ended up had a friend visiting from Australia. We visited Saint, and I hadn't heard anything about it until then, but I ended up being invited to a conference called Renaissance. And this was probably about 2 weeks before I'd given myself a deadline and said I would move back to Australia, if I didn't find the right job in London, even though I felt like I was called to be over there at that point in time. Yeah, I just was like, okay, this is the date. And so about 2 weeks before I was going to fly out, I was invited to Renaissance. I had no idea what it was, to be honest. I rocked up and it was, it just like, it's hard to describe that feeling. Like it was a gathering of, I think that year it was about 800 people, mostly young people in their 20s to 30s. And just like so much energy in the room. It was hosted at Saint, so this large, beautiful building that was built pre the Renaissance, so 1275, but had been done up and was used as like a music venue for various things. And it was, they're just like, basically Renaissance is a gathering of creatives. So not just, I think when we think about creatives in Australia, we often think about like visual artists and musicians and church creatives as well. But this was a room full of, like, if you can think of a creative field, they were in the room. So architects, artists, musicians, photographers, videographers, people in the film industry, actors, even people in strategy, people who are in interior design, like you name it. They were in the room. Podcasters.
Love it.
And it just was, it was like basically it's 2 days of wonder. So just sparking people's imagination, introducing young people to new big ideas and helping them to expand their minds and their practices so that the creativity that's inbuilt in them can overflow through wherever they're actually called and where they're working. And so, I ended up,
Amazing.
there was kind of a call during the conference, just being like, we feel like, God's asked us to give this away globally. Is anyone willing to run it? And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And yes, we need this across the world. No, I don't think I'm, called to policy. I'm called to the marketplace. But if I can help in some way, I totally would. And about a week later,
Amazing.
actually ended up having a conversation about, becoming executive director. I didn't initiate it, but it just really felt timely. And I was there in that season for a particular reason. And to be able to jump on board with a team to catalyze something that actually is empowering young people across the church to just dig deeper into who they're called to be just felt like a real privilege at that point in time. So the Saint crew are, to answer your original question, they're amazing and I absolutely loved working with them. I think what struck me about them the most, Renée, is that they're just unapologetically themselves. It's not, I don't think it's because they're anything fancy. They're like a church team of young people and it is a younger than average team, I would say. But ultimately, I just think that they are utilizing their creativity to the full and they just are fully themselves. And it just creates like a fun, vibrant, effervescent kind of team and environment to be in, and just exciting. Like when people are always like, oh, that seems like it's a hard idea, but we could do it. Let's try. Let's give it a go. That creates a different level of energy in the room, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's such a great description. And I want to just jump back on something you said initially, even in that waiting season of, okay, what's next? Do I go home? Just that sense of Londoners. This is where I first really understood the concept of being someone's sponsor. And there is such a authentic sense in London. If you're in London, you're not necessarily from London. I mean, there's lots that are, but often people have, there's a grit and a dream to be there. And so there is this additional sense of let's help one another get to where we're going. And that sounds as well like it's that feeling within Renaissance movement as well, not just across London, but really, really strong and intentional sense of not only do we want to inspire you, but we actually want to sponsor you, not money-wise. Sponsorship is not necessarily money. Sponsorship is, hey, can I encourage you? Hey, who can I introduce you to? What do you need to make this work? Is it courage? Is it time? Is it thinking space? Is it the thinking partner? And that was the strong sense I actually got when I attended Renaissance here in Brisbane, not this year, last year. And it was really special, really, really special.
Yeah, this I haven't been to a Renaissance. I'm now itching to go because it does sound incredible. There's something so, I definitely will. There's something so, I don't know, it's that extra boost when you're rubbing shoulders with people who have who do operate in a creative way and they have a similar goals and might be like-minded, and you can learn from each other and kind of, I don't know, it's so exciting. And it's just that it feels like just that boost that sounds so exciting. I'd love to come to that.
Yeah, I think it requires discipline. Like it requires just like a change of mindset of just being like, I think one of the best pieces of advice that someone gave me when I went over to the UK was actually like, just say yes, like be in the room, experience new things where there's opportunities, like keep saying yes. And I think like that's almost we forget to do that because we get so busy and we're like, oh, it's hard. But like where there's new opportunity, like don't overwhelm your schedule. Like I'm not encouraging burnout, but I think there is a sense of if it can't be a yes in terms of your own time, there was this sense of like, oh, but I can help you in some way. It's this, like what you're saying about kind of that sponsor relationship,
Right.
which is language that the corporate world uses. It's a bit more in the management consulting. Most people have sponsors and they actually
Yes.
advocate and use their voice in rooms where that person might not be in order to help them actually get into
Exactly.
other places within the organization. And so, yeah, it is just this sense of, like you might not be the right fit for the job or I'm not the right person, but what I can do is I can introduce you to 3 people or I can suggest this is might be
Yes.
somewhere that you could go for to ask questions, and that will then further your journey towards finding out the answers.
Absolutely. And it's so incredibly important to not only, we all need that person, but I'm challenging myself more and more of, in this season, how can I be that for others? Like, what is it that I can offer in this space?
It's great.
Speaking of this year's Renaissance, I saw that you were one of the lab hosts, and your topic that you led on was courageous creativity, which is a fantastic language, fantastic topic. Can you give us a bit of a taster of that session? Like, what were the kind of highlight points that you shared?
Yeah, I think the idea behind the session was to bring some of the learnings I had in different contexts. So just for listeners, I jumped on board with Renaissance when they just run the second London conference, but they needed someone who could actually help catalyze it and start building the teams internationally, start the conversations with churches about partnering and put some of this kind of scaffolding together around like a playbook so that what the DNA of Renaissance could be translated into other contexts and contextualized. I think there's when you're doing
Beautiful.
things globally, you really need to understand that you're not trying to just take one thing and make it the exact same in another place. It does need to be contextualized so that people can, it takes into consideration how people think and different styles of creativity in other places, etc. So I think 3 of the things that I had observed about the London, so we launched it in New York last year and Latin America and Australia, and London and New York are quite similar. They have this same kind of energy, there's always things happening. There's a lot of creatives they attract because they're just, they're such global cities. They attract a lot of creatives. And
yes,
the idea of the session was to kind of unpack some of the things that I thought were quite unique to those contexts, but don't translate or aren't as prevalent in the Australian context that I think actually could be barriers to creatives here genuinely being able to outwork their creativity. And so the first one was faith as feet. I think we often think that we need to, when we're starting something new, we need to have the best idea. It needs to be fully formed before we can start a business or start a creative calling. But I really wanted to impress on people that a lot of it is just about taking the next best step. You're like, I have an idea. What's the next best thing I need to do? Do I build a website? Do I have a conversation with someone? Every day when you're creating something, it's actually what's the next best step to help this idea to evolve into something. And that requires a certain level of risk. So you don't have to have it sorted out at the beginning. The second point was really around we grow with our friends. I think a lot of us have professionalized in and outside of the church. We've professionalized our friendships, and we often think sometimes, and not everyone thinks like this, but I think sometimes we're like, okay, work and life have a completely separate. I kind of expect that the people who I work with in a business context won't be the people that, I've grown up with or who I've met along the way. They'll come out of, I'll just meet the person who I could work with in the future. But the reality is that I think observing creatives in London and New York, you just work with your friends constantly. And one example is
or your sister-in-law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're the people the best.
Absolutely. And you trust, you trust with your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've already worked out the dynamics.
Mm.
Yeah. And, like you have to figure out how you do conflict, like deal with conflict in that. And, but even like, so Y Combinator is a like kind of an incubator and accelerator of, in Silicon Valley of, entrepreneurial ideas, and they help startups, and they have a lot of like teaching resources, but they're like, oh yeah, like find like people to work with who you can be friends with, because they're the people who you're going to be spending most of your time with. And so you want to be able to find people who you can work with and like have, the ability to communicate really effectively and, deal with conflict and things like that. But ultimately, often the people who are on the similar track as you are people who you bumped up against already in life. And
yes.
I found at Renaissance, it's just like lots of people they go play music together, and then they end up being the musicians for the singers and songwriters, or, they're painting art in their free time with friends, or, you name it. Like it's actually just a bit more of like an organic ecosystem that grows and enables like you kind of bumping into each other.
Yes. I want to build on that, Annie, if that's okay, because Lauren and I are both quite obsessed is the wrong word, but we're very, very, we enjoy Good Hang by Amy Poehler. I don't know if you know this podcast.
No, please enlighten me.
So we just love it and we chat about it and it's fantastic. And in fact, my eldest son just yesterday said, Dad, do you know who my mum's mentor is? And Fung's like, oh, who? And he goes, Amy Poehler, Good Hangs. And he was like, would we call her the mentor? I'm not sure. But anyway, all that to say, it's on in the background quite a lot and I just enjoy it. But the point I'm making here is it's so interesting that all of the people that she worked with on SNL then are in all of her movies, and it's the same, and they're all her friends. And then you realize the ecosystem of SNL is they are all in each other's movies. They're all friends, and I think it's really what you're saying is there's not just talent involved, but there's deep love and respect and comfort when you are working with friends, and it is special because I grew up hearing you don't partner or work with your friends. Like it was actually a direct thing I heard, even in business school, like don't work with your friends. But the more entrepreneurs I talk to and, even a strategy business I work for, they were friends. The partners were friends first. But you do need to press in on how you wrestle well. That is the key, I think. I think it's a natural thing to be able to ideate, a natural thing to be able to have fun, but the wrestling bit and how you respect and build the right container around that is super key. Yeah.
And I think just having the people skills to make those connections when they pop up in your life and recognize when you have a good dynamic with someone is also really valuable. My dad has always said it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think you can be really intentional about the people that you do know, and not just that person can get me somewhere, but that person, I respect what they have. I trust them. They respect me and trust me, and we can work together. I think that can be. My dad, he goes to this cafe down the road from his house. It's called, actually, I probably shouldn't give it away.
So
and
lovely.
He has, over the past 4 years, made this group of friends just of guys that go and get a coffee at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning at that cafe. And 5 of those, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and they are so involved in each other's lives. One of them has come up and put a shelf in my house. One of them has painted my other sister's house. Like they're always doing each other favors. Most of them are tradies. My dad's not. He's an exec in education. And I remember saying to my mum, "What does Dad bring to this? Like he's not doing anyone any favors." But
he proofreads their invoices.
Yeah, he does just have this knack for just building these relationships with people at a cafe. Like I love that. And that's something that I think is similar to what you're saying. Those relationships then you can walk with those people that you've built those relationships with, and that's going to be a better foundation for working together when you already have that level of trust and that, you've worked out that dynamic a bit.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying, Lauren. Like, one thing I would observe from that is that they do really practical things together. Like the outworking of that And the strengthening of the friendship is often through being like, oh, you have a need. Let me help you do that practical thing.
Yes.
And I think that's how we used to be. And now we've like kind of become so individualistic. We like cater for all our own needs, and we outsource them to other people. We forget that actually connections created by doing things together. And I actually think this is something that creativity offers a solution to. Like when you are doing like creative projects together, you have side hustles and hobbies that you invite people into. When, if particularly for apartment living, we have less, practical needs. Sometimes it's actually it is the practical things that we do side by side instead of, having to drive 20 minutes, have coffee and then leave again. That doesn't create as much depth of relationship as when you're doing a podcast together, or you're building a piece of furniture, or you're moving, helping someone move house. So yeah, there's a lot to be like unpacked and learnt from how people just used to develop relationship in like communities. Like we didn't used to live the way that we do now in such like isolation. And we're starting to realize that actually with AI, our relationships matter, because they are the thing that holds us steadfast. And we like to be able to trust the people that we're actually spending our time with.
Absolutely. And we need to be able to be not crazy messy in front of people, but that sense of it's not perfect. It's not, I'm not a fully formed whatever, and I'm allowing you into the spaces that are not fully formed and showing you a bit of my need, and I'm hoping that you'll show me a bit of your need. I'm reading this amazing book on the hospitality of need, and I think I might have shared it with you, Annie, I'm not too sure, but this sense of the amazing dynamic that happens between a person who physically needs support every day, and he invites his friends in. He rotates a month on, month off friendships to come and help be his carer, and the phenomenal way that it changes both of their lives. In fact, it changes the person who's caring more than the person who's receiving the care. But that sense of we actually all need each other, not one person's needed and one person, it creates this hierarchy, but equal level of what's your need and what's my need, and how can we untap that in one another, is an art that needs to be reclaimed, I believe.
Yeah, it's so good.
Annie, when it comes to creativity, how do you frame it or describe it, define it? What words do you use?
This is a great question, because I think in my 20s, I was like, oh, the number of times I said, I'm not creative. Like, I'm not creative. Like, I couldn't count on two hands because it was so many. But I have come to realize that like everyone's creative. Like, being made in the image of God means that like the first thing we know about him is that he's a creator God. And we often forget that. And there's something actually, Tyler Staton talks about this. So earlier in the year, he was actually at Saint when he was talking about this. So he is the pastor of Bridgetown Church, and he was talking about there being kind of two forms of work. Essentially, like work existed before the fall. Like God actually gave people jobs to do. He like asked them to name the animals, and there's this like it was like co-creating like with God. Whereas after the fall, it became more like toil. And I think what Tyler Staton says is that creativity is work that is like freely chosen and derived from within. So when you express that work into the world, it's an expansion of the truest thing about you. And that is to like bear the image of the creator. And I think it's helpful to have this conversation on a podcast where it's probably more likely to be creatives and entrepreneurs listening to this, because I think when you are creative and you're out working something and you've experienced that, there's something deeper, like you're drawing it out from something like deeper within you. It feels like there's a wrestle that happens.
Yes.
I'm laughing.
Good word.
Great word.
We should do a podcast on that.
We should do a podcast on that. Yeah, like I think so many of us have worked in like just jobs that just feel like you're just doing the same thing day in, day out. It's not like particularly exciting. Or actually, this is a good example. Like when I think about cooking, often I'm like, ugh, like, it's just me again. I'm like, cooking for myself, I'll just pull some crackers out of like the cupboard. And sometimes cooking just feels like toil. But when you get to share
Yes.
it with friends, like the thing that like some people will like cook beautiful meals for themselves. But when I like genuinely engage with the act of creating a meal that I know that I will enjoy, I know others will enjoy, it sparks something else within me, and it grows.
Yes.
It like
It's good.
almost builds a muscle as well. So there's something about creativity that is generative. But then it's also, I think it's feeding something within us. Like you're creating something and you're
Yes.
also like building something that you start to observe, like the world. You learn something about the world through the process of creating. So it's not just like doing something and feeling
I love that.
like it costs you. It's like actually like giving you enjoyment, and it's lifting your eyes in a different way and seeing the world in a bit of a different way. So I don't know, I'm like interested in your definitions of creativity and how you also think about creativity and whether that resonates.
Definitely resonates. Cooking, yes, can feel like a chore, but also I get bored with it being the same thing every day. And I do cook a lot of the same kind of meals because it's just easy. I've got 3 kids. But something within me is like, I can't do this exactly the same. I'm going to have to throw something different in here because I can't get through the chore of making this meal if it's going to be exactly the same as, every other time I made this meal. So there is something that makes it is so much more meaningful, so much more enjoyable if it's like we just try something new and throw something in here that probably shouldn't go in here and see what happens. But my definition of creativity, and someone we spoke to recently did bring up the idea that it is different to everybody. Everyone does or would have a different definition despite the similarities. And I do like that. But my definition of creativity would be that it is definitely problem solving. It is creating something original. But the best part of creativity, or my favorite part, is that spark, that part of you that just comes alive, and then that I guess I don't have the right word for it, but maybe an obsession or whatever comes over to then complete that thought, or to push to the extremes that idea. Like, how far can we take this idea? There's that risk-taking element. There's that bravery that's required because this could fail, this could flop. But the new ground, the originality of it is the part that excites me. Yeah. And that doesn't have to be in an artistic sense. For me, it often is in an artistic sense, in the arts, not just, but definitely when it comes to like innovation, that excites me as well. When you think about people who are thinking in new ways, and it doesn't have to be within the arts, but that's also creativity. And I think we do sometimes forget about those people. They might not be described as creatives, but absolutely they're creatives. They're thinking original thought. They're solving problems. They are stamping out new ground. So that's what I think about when it comes to creativity.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like an artist with a brush, a surgeon with a scalpel, like a strategist with like a new like problem to solve. Like it just, creativity is not limited, I don't think.
No, I absolutely agree. And it's really a summary of what you've both said. But about 8 years ago, people would say to me often, I think you're creative. I think you're creative. And I really rejected that word. It didn't resonate with me at all. And I actually looked at it more from I need to learn what this word means, and I need to understand how I can apply it. So it was quite a almost from a education point of view of, okay, I want to understand what this word means. And so I looked up the definition, like you do, and it said creativity is to bring into existence that which does not yet exist. And it was like a massive light bulb went on in my heart and my head at the same time. And I thought, yes, that is what I thoroughly enjoy doing, is pioneering new spaces, carving out something that doesn't exist yet. And it helped me to reflect back on my life and give me language and compassion for why I have wrestled with different concepts, different system structures, different ways that people do the things that they do, I've wrestled with it in my heart and gotten quite frustrated, a holy discontent, but it would come out in frustration. And what that language of creativity helped me to release in myself was, this is a God design in you, that you want to correct things that need correcting. You want to disrupt systems that are oppressive and are not okay. But also I want you to bring solution, not just frustration. And so it really gave me a sense of vision as to not only what creativity is, but how it can be wielded for good and not just crankiness in my own self. So whenever I'm getting cranky, I have to talk to myself, because it happens more and more, of, okay, are you going to wrestle with this and bring solution, or are you just going to add to the noise? And so creativity is a lens for me of moving over to the good disruption as opposed to the cranky noise. And so it helps me funnel thought and idea to leave something better than when I found it.
Going back to what you said earlier, there's a Latin phrase, creatio ex nihilo, and it's the Latin phrase for create something out of nothing. And it's used in theology to describe what God does. But like when you actually start to understand that, like, we're all made in his image, it makes sense that is something that we actually have a desire to do, and that is like one of the things that helps bring the good, true, and beautiful into the world. And I don't know, I find in the creative space some of the...
Say that again, the good, true, and beautiful.
Yeah, the transcendentals. So they're basically...
Love it.
They're like the things that actually are transcendent. They transcend like people, regardless of like kind of where they're from or their context, can agree that they're good. So they're goods in and of themselves, if that makes sense. So they're not dependent. They have no dependencies.
Yes.
That's, just to explain to listeners, the transcendentals.
Beautiful. Okay. I want to press in a little bit more on community, if that's okay. We've talked about how important community is. How do you nurture community in your own space? Like, you've moved back from London to Australia. You've moved to a different city. And so I'm always curious about how one cultivates and nurtures community when they're kind of new on the scene.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like you kind of have to rally, and I've lived in quite a few places over the years. So when I was growing up, we moved towns probably 3 times, and like houses a few times kind of within each of those places. And so I think partly like I got used to and I got good at making friends and like dealing with change. It kind of equipped me. Maybe too much in life. You get addicted to change sometimes, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah,
Guilty.
I think in this...
You're looking at happy change people here. Happy change people.
Amongst friends.
Yes.
Amongst friends.
Yeah, amongst friends.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Brisbane, so the choice to move to Brisbane when I moved back was really around being closer to family. So family have been up here since basically I finished school. And so I was in Sydney for about 10 years by myself, with friends, obviously. And yeah, I think like I have a niece and nephew now, and they're really small and in a really fun stage of life. And so having them just down the road is like such a joy. And I think I've also been quite fortunate that quite a few friends really kind of by coincidence have moved to Brisbane in the last year. So a few friends from Melbourne. There's been some friends from Sydney who've moved up either like to Brisbane or Gold Coast. And so it's been a really beautiful time of like having some really deep, close friends. And some of us we knew each other through networks, but we weren't necessarily best friends. But we've been able to like I went for a run this morning with my sister-in-law and a friend who live within 5 minutes drive. And it's interesting. There's this study that's been done there's probably been many studies, but study that has been done of like when you have a lot of friendships, or at least a couple of friendships or family within a 20-minute walk, so probably within like a 5 to 10 minute drive, actually like it's directly correlated with people's happiness. And I would say in the season, like,
wow.
The coincidence, because we need the coincidental like relationships where you bump into people in the street, or
Yes,
you
it's my
can just
favourite.
make last minute plans, because I don't think we're meant to plan our entire life out and have a really detailed schedule. I think we used to be in more proximity with each other. And so that's been a really beautiful time.
Yes.
I've got lots of have embedded myself in a church community as well, and a run club. Run clubs are like the way to make friends in Brisbane, because there's like a million of them.
I agree. Yes. I want to be in a run club. I need help there, but I want to. My heart wants to.
The desire is there. I love it.
Yes, there's a desire. There's not.
But my
yet
body.
reality.
My body.
Yeah.
Amazing. So there's the intentional and the organic. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And lots of everyone does sport here. So if you let's play pickleball, let's play tennis, that's probably the way that people are hanging out here. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So fun. So let's talk about your business now. We'll change gears. You run a consultancy called LUMN. Talk to me about its origin story.
Yes.
How did it begin?
Yeah. So, I was moving back from London. I couldn't deal with another UK winter. So it was time to kind of come back to sunnier Australia. And I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do when I came back. I kind of gave myself, I was like, no, I'll give myself a period of time to just be and to rest for a season. It feels like I've been through a bit of a sprinting season. And then I'd given myself a month, and I probably got 2 weeks in and was like, I'm just going to start my own business, which is fairly classic me.
Love that. This is why we're friends. This is where we connect.
Why not? Why not? Just, I feel like when you're in transition seasons, you're just like, well, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
I'm not giving up a job to do this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think there's kind of built-in risk anyway. There's decisions you have to make. And so it felt like a little bit of a no-brainer. And just, I think, So it started, just to answer your question, the origins were around this idea. So I love working with visionaries. I probably spent the last 10 years working for visionaries in some capacity. And I don't need to be the person who comes with the idea, but I'm always wanting to work with people who have ideas that could change the trajectory of something, like culture particularly.
Great.
And so working alongside people who are just willing to say yes to an idea and just go, let's give it a try. I really believe in just walking alongside them and saying, okay, how do we do this? Have you thought about this? Have you these are some ideas, and just helping them through the process of getting something that actually could shift, just change, the process of building things that should exist that don't exist. And most of the work that we do is pioneering new projects, changing, building communities, and mostly in the missional movements, churches, and nonprofit spaces. And some of those, mostly are working on projects that are kind of trying to change the status quo in some way. So, for instance, there's a project I worked on earlier in the year, which I loved. So, it might be something like Renaissance, which obviously going to get behind a project helping the next generation find their purpose and experience the love of God. The other projects that I'm helping kind of think through often around, what does it look like? Actually, I'll just give you an example. So we did a project helping an organization who is already kind of the bread and butter of their local area, thinking through what it looks like to take their ministry of helping post-juvie kids to the next level. So they have, a jiu-jitsu gym and a barbershop and a cafe, and basically it's creating the social enterprises and the ecosystem and the community in which these young people can land, or even pre-juvie, that just sweeps up young people who could end up in the system and gives them, avenues to channel their energy, to create discipline, develop discipline, and also to learn skills so that they might be employable in the future.
Amazing.
And they were looking for
That's so good.
or looking at providing also some more like stable housing. And it could have easily become like, I think a lot of the sector is all about providing housing. And so some of like a lot of the policy mechanisms are actually focused on housing outcomes instead of whole of life outcomes. But what I loved in working with these guys was that they were like, this is about leadership development. Like these young people have so much potential and they haven't had people who have believed in them and they haven't had community around them who have said, you have something to offer. You need discipline. You need like self-discipline. You know, we're going to invest in you and we believe in you and we're going to love you and we're going to provide some of like kind of the scaffoldings, like the lower like Maslow hierarchy of needs, provide some of like the supports that actually enable you to thrive. So you're not ending up, you know, when you leave juvie, ending up back in your parents' home who are in and out of jail as well and who are, you know, influenced by the gangs and things. But ultimately, this is actually about your development. You have to take ownership over your life. You have agency. And this is not just happening to you. You have choice. And so I think I love working alongside people who are just like, no, this is not what the world or like even like policy is necessarily focused on right now, because we've just made it about the symptom instead of the actual core problem. And like the challenge that we've actually got is actually to address the actual core problem, if that makes sense. And so
it's so good, Annie. And it's harder work. I think it's important to point that out. This is harder work. It's not let's tick the box, let's get the KPI done, deliverable, move on. It's pause, let's look deeper into this and let's wrestle through this together. And I think it's just really important. It's really important work. And I just love that you bring a creative, very thoughtful lens to that space. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love the more challenging something is, the more excited I am about it.
Oh, I would love to do your strengths profile, Annie. I reckon I could understand what would be your top energizers. Yeah.
So,
amazing.
Annie, as an entrepreneur, what have been some of the surprising aspects that you have wrestled with or are currently wrestling with?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, I think the entrepreneurial journey is what people kind of expect. Like there is just that kind of day in, day out. Like what does today look like? How do you keep the main thing? Like what are ultimately the things that I need to keep at the top of the priority list constantly? And you're off like when you're an entrepreneur, you become the jack of all trades. You have to kind of do everything.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be building a website, whether it be the sales, doing the actual work, communication, like you're it. And so it's a very humbling experience because you don't have people who are like working for you doing like the more kind of mundane jobs, or, you know, who you can outsource some things that you're potentially not as good at to other people. So you learn a lot. Like that, I think that's something that I would say it pushes you. Like you have to be willing to risk something. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and you strengthen a lot of muscles. And I think something that I've learnt through the process has been the level of like evolution that happens. So when you start out, you're like, okay, I have an idea. And like, let's try it. We'll create a website around it. But like, as you're then starting to communicate to people what it is that you're doing, you start to sharpen your thinking. You start to sharpen your language. And it's you test the concepts as you build it. It's like you're building the plane while it's flying in many ways. And I think the fear of not having the fully formed idea is the thing that often stops people from doing like the entrepreneurial journey. And I always feel like the gift to me has been being in that transition season. So it kind of just forced me to just be like, you know, I'll just like take that risk. But the reality is that I think regardless of whether you feel like you have a fully formed idea or you just start when you feel like it's the right time, there is this process of like you just are constantly in a process of testing and evolving and iterating and learning as an entrepreneur. And I love it because it actually forces you to know yourself better. like one of the other things that I think is really important in creativity is actually like the better you know yourself, because you're like outworking something from within, you want to work out of your strengths. Like you will have to do other things that, you know, maybe weaknesses, etc. But I think the better you want to create something that feels like it's coming from the overflow of your heart. And so you need to know yourself really well to do that.
Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah.
Amazing. I love that. So we ask all of our guests this question, but what inspires you, or who inspires you, or how do you get inspired?
Ooh. Yeah, lots of different things. And it's different on different days. I think I'm like very inspiration. We often are like thinking about that kind of the big, like the beacon that we like look to. I'm just inspired by people who are building beautiful things, like who have optimism, who have no ego, and who are building beautiful things and going after building what's like beautiful, excellent, true and good in the world. Like, and it just sounds like a really ethereal kind of like answer, but I think they're the people who inspire me. Like people are like, oh, who do you want to have? You know, everyone asks that question of like, who would you sit down with, or who would you invite to dinner? You know, if you could have dinner with anyone. But I think it's actually, I get most inspired by people who just like have grit and who are like building beautiful things. And I think when you have been on that journey, you start to understand how much I think you have a respect for people who are also doing it.
Yes.
And you want to learn from them and learn from their process. And yeah, I mean, the other thing is just getting out in nature, like inspiration from nature, inspiration from seeing other beautiful works of art. Like London was great for this because you just walk through all of the free art galleries and museums, and it just, I think you have to spend time in wonder and awe and looking and hearing and seeing things that lift your eyes and help you to like think bigger and go, oh, there's something bigger than me out there. And then it also helps you, like,
I love that.
When you are doing the day-to-day, get out of your head and get out of your own space and realize that actually the thing that's in front of me, I often think about, how do I do the harder thing? So what I'm currently doing, it doesn't feel as hard. Like, how do we constantly put it? It's like training muscle in the gym. It's like, how do you do the hard thing so that actually the things that feel hard in the day-to-day don't feel as hard? That was a very mixy kind of two concepts into my answer, but you get what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I'd love to hear what you find inspiring.
Oh, well, I am surprisingly quite an introvert. Most people would be like, you're loud and crazy, but I actually gain a lot of energy from being by myself. And so that really helps owning my own business and running things in that way, because it's kind of me and the dog a lot. But I actually have realized more and more that these little coffees with friends and these getting up out of the house, getting out back into the world really fuels me. And similar to you, Annie, I have a lot of respect for people who are building beautiful things. I think that's a wonderful phrasing, and that's going to be added to my merch line. Build beautiful things. I'll tell you about my merch line that happens in my head
now.
Later, Annie. But yes, but it's, I'll say to myself, that'll merch. That's what I say. And but yeah, I think I get very inspired by others. I'm really inspired, particularly when I know they are pushing through with something. There is an element of, this is not naturally easy for me. And because I've had that element in my life as well, with various different reasons, but I'm particularly inspired and have great respect for people who push through and show great resilience in challenging times. I'm also very inspired by music. I have a beautiful record player near me, so vinyls, and I'm always inspired by the origin story, the context behind art. And so something that I just find myself constantly listening to interviews, people being asked about context. I think for me, it just lands when I hear like the backstory. And so I'm just super inspired by what's what's led to something. There's this great image I shared on Instagram many moons ago, but it was a photo taken of the Beatles on the sidewalk or on the footpath before crossing the famous crossing at Abbey Road. And they're just kind of huddled and they're just chatting. And the line that was written with it was, the moment before the great. And it really did something in me of like, I love what you've done, but tell me about how you did it and why you did it and the challenge and the process.
Yes.
So that's inspiring to me, and it helps with my own level of grit. Yeah.
I'm really inspired by risk takers. Again, yes, other people. I love seeing people go out on a limb, take a big risk. Even when it doesn't work out, I still find it inspiring. I love learning about other people's process, which is a bit about, a bit of how this podcast came to be. I'm so inspired by seeing how people do things, and I get a real itchy, I want to try that. I think when I watched The Matrix, was it the first one? I think it was the first one. And, the first one, and they put the program in and he learns whatever that, the martial arts thing, and then they just put the card in and he learns something else or whatever. I'm like, oh my goodness, I want that. I want to just drop these cards in and learn all these different things. I'd love to collect all these random skills. But I'm so inspired by seeing how people do things, especially when it's a process that they've refined over time and they've, wrestled with the issues and the problems. I find that really inspiring. But yes, all things beautiful, all art forms. I could go to anything live and just really just soak up the whole experience.
Yeah. This is probably telling you a bit about me, but I just wonder if this actually would resonate with a lot of people. But I found that I've had to schedule in play and schedule in moments. It sounds so uninspiring because you're like, wow, like it should be fun. But it's like, it's the artist's way. Yes, I have that actually.
Do you know this book? Do you know Lovely Julia Cameron?
Yeah.
It's like literally right there, the creative Bible.
Yeah. Definitely everyone who I know is a creative talks about it. Yeah. And I think when you run your own business or like you are doing, or you're working for someone else and you're like, oh, actually just most of my world and week is actually about work. Like we talk about that. We're busy all the time. It's like, I've actually just worked out, schedule a holiday, schedule like the night with a friend, schedule, like if you put it in your diary, it will happen.
Schedule the fun.
Exercise. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And play. Do you have any kind of creative play that you like to do? Any hobbies in that area? Any arty areas?
So I actually taught myself to draw last year, which is really fun.
Amazing.
That has been harder in a season of building a business to cultivate. I actually have like a print of one of them here, but I do some charcoal drawing.
Wow, beautiful.
Weird story. So it was last year, my housemate and I were talking, we were like, oh, we have all these white walls and we just need to put some like artwork on them. And so we went to a few shops and we're walking around London and didn't find anything that we were like, oh, this is affordable. And also, we both like it. And we're like quite different people, but get along really well. And so I was like, oh, like, why don't I just try and draw something and just see what I come up with? Like, you can say I hate it and we won't put it on the wall and it's fine. But it just kind of started a process of me having a look at like watching some artists online and just seeing, particularly, I've always loved portraiture. So I love expression. I love, discovered when I was in more of a communications job a few years back, like discovered that I love capturing when like joy often hits people's eyes before it actually hits their mouth. So I love those candid moments. And I've always kind of been drawn to portraiture whenever I've visited art galleries. And so, I like followed a couple of portrait artists and just tried some like sketching. And it's been a really cool journey. And I think it's funny, like, I don't know if you've heard of CJ Hendry. She's like this epic.
She's one of my
color
favorites.
pencil artists.
Yeah.
Amazing. And she's also from Brisbane, which is wild, but she lives in New York now. But hyper realistic artwork. And she's often taking the mickey and like, turning like, artists are great at that. But she talks about this idea of copying work. She's like, I actually like a lot of people just say, no, you need to come up with an original work, like original ideas, actually disagree. Like I think often copying someone's work helps generate ideas. It helps you find the things that you like resonate with you, and you start to build skills. And then your work can take an original form as you ideate and evolve it. But that's essentially what I end up doing. I just was like, I'll just copy and see if I can draw like something that I actually quite love. And from there, I just have kind of taken it to another degree and like love some of the work that I've done and have it on my walls. And it's just been a beautiful outlet in the season. So you're an illustrator as well, Lauren. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. My creative interests have changed over the years a lot. I've had a lot over the years, but since I had kids, that's when my love for picture books really, I would open picture books and I'd be like, oh, I love this. Look at these beautiful pictures. Some of them, not all of them are beautiful.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's just something magical about them that really, took my attention. And it's still, every time I open picture books, I just get this feeling. So I really wanted to focus my attention on that about 7 years ago when I had my first. And that slowly developed. I was teaching art, I was teaching design in high school, and I had worked as a graphic designer and had done that on the side. But yeah, really, really trying to narrow in on that picture book journey. So working with an agent to get a couple of my own books published, hopefully soon.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's next for you, Annie? What's on the horizon?
Yes.
What's exciting? Projects, passion projects? What's exciting?
That's a great question. I feel like the thrill of the entrepreneur life is that you don't know what's next. And what's coming around the corner. Yeah,
correct.
So I'm watching.
It
my
can
new
change
website
overnight,
shortly.
can't it? Like literally.
Literally, yeah. Yes. And in the last couple of weeks, it's definitely been like that. Yeah, so I'm launching my new website, which I'm really excited about. I think, like what I was saying, the thing you first start out with, I think it actually happens pretty quickly in the first year, where you just go, okay, it's like now we've already evolved from that place. And so that's really exciting. And then, I'm just like keen to see, like the fun part about what I'm doing is like people will often have ideas and they'll email me and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Could you help out? And that, I'm excited to see what new ideas have been dreamed up over the next year. And I just think 2026 it's a bit of an unknown, but it's also, I'm like very excited about it, and it feels like it'll be a big year for many different reasons. Yeah.
Amazing. Annie, this has been such a joy, delight. I've learnt so much, and you have just a fantastic language around creativity, but you really draw it down to a practical expression. And I just think our listeners are going to be really inspired and challenged in a great way from hearing you speak. We're going to drop in the show notes all the details to contact you, Annie. So your new website, etc. I think there'll be some people who are wanting to reach out, no doubt. But thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
What a great human.
No, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Welcome to the B-side.
Well, wasn't that a great chat? I learnt so much. Thank you to Annie Phillips. What do you think, guys?
Oh, she's amazing. And I just love her approach. She is very intentional, strategic with her life, but then very open to being brave, like for things to suddenly change.
And on that, I loved, a standout for me, a real moment was when she called her brother at the beginning, when she talked about her journey, and she was vulnerable with him. And I loved that she had the right person to call, because he had the right thing to say in that moment. He encouraged her risk taking, because obviously he knew her, obviously she trusted him. And that really stuck out. Have the right people in your circles so that you can call them, be vulnerable, and they can say something profound in that moment, or something, they can see what you can't see.
So true. Like, the thing that comes to mind when you say, and this is a bit of a fun thing, but when I'm bored every now and then, I love going on the rabbit hole of watching those like terrible like American Idol auditions or something like that.
I love those.
People, I love them. It's my favorite thing ever. And they just can't sing for the life. It's really bad,
It's
but they're
dire.
just terrible. It's shocking.
And you think, where are your people?
Yeah, you need someone who's not your mum or your best friend who says, "Oh my gosh, you're the most amazing singer ever." It's like, no, you're not. You need someone who just needs to be that harsh friend, but
Yes.
kind and fair, but just like, look, I love you. You're a wonderful person. You're great at things. This
Yes.
isn't your thing.
This isn't your thing.
Having that person that you can trust is so important to growing in your craft. Like everyone should have that
Yes.
one person that just can be honest with them. And it's not this personal dig, and you can walk away and not go like, oh, I'm bad at what I do. It's like the constructive feedback thing.
Absolutely. And I was just talking to my husband this morning about this actually in the car. We're talking about how important it is to create language in your friendships where you can be honest and it's not negative. And we're talking about the difference between honesty and negativity and how to actually broach honest conversations. It's really challenging because with friendships and family, you want to be those cheerleaders, those encouragers, but you also want to bring truth. But definitely I could pick straight away that was an older brother kind of comment. That was phenomenal. And
I had a moment recently. I was telling my best friend, I was preparing to sing and play keys at a funeral, and she said, "Oh, how are you feeling about it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm feeling a bit nervous about it." And she said two things. One of them was, "Don't worry about being nervous. You'll be great." Second thing she said was, "And nobody cares." And it was just that.
Perfect.
It's not about you, Lauren.
That's right.
Go out there, do the thing, but it's not about you. And that's what I needed to hear in that moment.
Absolutely. And the truth. And it's like, okay, that high pitch. Yeah, great. Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks.
It's true. It's that reality check of like, we sometimes build up in our own heads that we're making whatever this thing is out way bigger than it actually is. Not to diminish the importance of whatever we're doing, but just like, you know what? It's okay.
Absolutely. And I love that the conversation brought out the bends in her story and not just the wins. And I think that's where we learn from each other is like, what do you do when there's a gap? What do you do in the wait? What do you do when you have that sense inside of you? This is not quite the path for me. And I think in artistic expression, in careers, in transitioning from high school to university, all of those kind of things, those moments of listening to that inner gut, that inner voice, that inner sense of like, you know what? I know that this isn't quite right. Am I brave enough to sit with this, to wrestle with this? To call in the right people, but also take the bend with wisdom. And I love that out of that, she was talking about out of that transition came the birth of her consultancy. And I heard someone say the other day, it's the bends in life where you need the dreams and the messages and the calls from friends, but it's also the bends in life that can actually allow you the freedom and the bravery to take it differently, to take it in a different path. And what's come out of that is quite exciting. It's really fun.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think?
I haven't been to this Renaissance movement. I'm really keen to check it out. It sounds, I don't know, it just sounds exciting to be rubbing shoulders with, all these different people in different fields and different creative gifts. And yeah, I'd love to check that one out.
It's definitely a environment that's bubbly. It has this, I think she described it as effervescence. It has this fizz to it. It's anything can happen and it probably will. My dad uses that phrase. Anything can happen and it probably will. And it's that sense. And I think when I went a couple of years ago to the Brisbane event, there was just so many people from so many different expressions. And I was really keen to meet maybe the odd person who loves strategy and thought design and, that element. But it just felt like there was lots of different people in the room. And I think that was really exciting. New faces, fresh ways to think. One of the stories I remember specifically from that was from the New York event. And they had the chef there actually who is the star of this story. But I think she might have been in between chapters in her life as well. And decided to start to just gather a few people around food. So making the table the center and making safe spaces where people could connect in community. And
Yeah.
it grew to such an extent that I think she's opened restaurants and,
Wow.
all for this amazing ability to connect people around community. So it's not just everybody individually eating with their table, but there's these long tables. It's the imagery of the long tables, which I'm obsessed with, long tables. And she just, out of sort of one spark of an idea, it's grown in itself to become a movement in New York. And I think it was just super inspiring for me. And they flew her across to the Brisbane event to talk about it. So it's the storytelling element for me as well, the sharing, the learnings. It's beautiful.
I'm excited to hear those stories as the years of these events roll on, where people have been inspired or little communities have grown, and then more fruit, and it just multiplies. I'm looking forward to seeing that result. Well, great chat, everybody. Thanks for your thoughts. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Creative Wrestle.
Don't forget to subscribe, find us on socials, and share with your friends.